Welcome everyone to Equitable Grading. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for joining me. I'm really excited to dig into some of these ideas. My name is Dustin Dawson and I work for Lane ESD as a STEM specialist, but I also am super big into grading and assessment and trying to figure out how to do this in a way that's gonna promote more excitement and engagement from our students and a little less shame. And I started reading really deeply about a year ago about equitable grading, and I started with Joe Feldman's book, and then I listened to a bunch of stuff from Rick Romelli and a couple other people, and I realized when I looked at that I was actually doing some of the equitable grading strategies, and I was like, oh sweet, that's great, that's awesome. And I also realized I wasn't doing a lot of the other ones. In fact, maybe some of the ones that had the bigger impact, I wasn't actually doing those particular strategies. But most importantly, I realized I probably am not doing it for the right reason, right? I wanted my students to do well, so I let students retake tests and things like that with no penalty. So that's a great practice to have, but my mindset wasn't on really shifting the way we teach and the way we assess our students. And I found that a lot of my students were completely demotivated. They just didn't want to try. They may even be interested in the subject, but they wouldn't want to put anything down on paper because they had such a feeling that, or at least it seemed in my opinion, they just felt destroyed by the educational system, and they didn't feel like it was safe for them to learn. They didn't feel like they could put themselves out there and be validated for what they were bringing to the classroom. I was talking to my dear friend, Dr. Leah Dunbar, and she said something that really irritated me a lot. And that was that she said, if you engage in grading, you are engaging in oppression. And I really hate that statement. I think mostly because I think it's true. I think it actually has a lot of validity to it. And that is painful, knowing that I spent the last 20 years engaging in oppression, knowing that our institutions are requiring us to do that. And so this course is about shifting to practices and styles and methodologies of teaching that decrease the oppressive nature of the grading that we do. So that's my goal. I'm hoping that you and I can work together to create systems that allow our students to focus more on the learning and growing and not where they are in the hierarchy in the classroom or in the school or in the district or whatever, and not about whether or not they're just going through the motions and getting the work done and what do I have to do to get my grade up. It's about the learning. I broke this course up into 4 parts. Lesson 1 is kind of about the theory and the philosophy around grading, and I know you're going to want to skip it. Please don't. I actually think it's probably the most important lesson there is, because if you don't understand why you're making some of the shifts, you might not make that shift in a way that's going to be really beneficial to your students. So spend some time on lesson 1 and really dig into the why do we grade? What's the point? Why do we spend so many hours grading anyways if it's going to demotivate a huge portion of our students, especially our historically underserved students? Lesson 2, 3, and 4 are progressively going to be talking about strategies that are more time intensive. So in lesson 2, they're going to be the least time intensive. In fact, one of them is going to take less of your time. In fact, you're going to free up time if you choose to take on this particular strategy. And then lesson 3, it's like, okay, we'll take some extra work, kind of like when you allow students to retake quizzes or tests, or because you're going to have to regrade them again, or if you let them turn in late work for no penalty, you're going to get more late work turned in, and that will require you to do a little bit more work. And then the 3rd or the 4th lesson is all about the big kind of heavy lift stuff. So standards-based grading and priority standards and really digging into those bigger topics, usually best done with a team unless you're kind of crazy and then you really want to dig in on yourself. Be careful of burnout there. Now, I will tell you, I've only been digging into this for about a year, really digging in hard. I have been grading for 20 years, so in that way, maybe I'm an expert, but mostly an expert of not doing it really well in terms from an equitable standpoint. So please push back. I expect you to push back on me and to say, hey, I don't think this is going to work in my context. I don't think this is even a good philosophy to have. You might be right. Absolutely. I'm just reading books from other people and trying to use my own experience, my own memories from the classroom, what would have worked in my context. So please do push back. I want to have a rich discussion here. I don't know everything. You know your students best. What's going to work in your classroom may not work in somebody else's classroom, and that's fine too. Lastly, I want to make sure that you understand that this course is not a checklist of to-do items. You are not the best teacher or the most equitable teacher if you do every strategy in here. That's not what's going to make you the most equitable. What's going to make you the most equitable is you being present for your students and you being able to do the work without being overloaded and overburdened. So don't see this as I must do all these things. See it as a menu of items, things to try out, things to play with. So I don't want you to feel extra stressed that you need to do all these things. And at the same time, even if you did all of these things, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're equitable. So you need to have the mindset first. That awareness is the most important part when it comes to grading. So with that, thank you again. I'm really excited to dig in and I look forward to our journey. This is a long journey that we're going to take, one that will probably never end, because who knows, you may even come up with some new strategies that are the foundations of a new, beautiful way to go about doing this work. So thank you. I look forward to our discussions on the trail, and I'll see you out there.